Hey, welcome back and welcome to 2016, everybody. This is your first 2016 edition of MedHeads, MedCityNews.com's conversation on innovation on the business side of healthcare. I am Chris Seper, and I run MedCityNews.com. Coming live from beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, we're going to be talking about CES this week. Obviously, in Vegas, the biggest conflagration of consumer electronics, and the health portion keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'm joined by two people who were at CES, located in some flop house somewhere in Greater Vegas, is Stephanie Baum. Stephanie, you're our digital health editor for MedCity News. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. An actual Las Vegas resident and the founder of HealthCareScene.com, who actually moderated a panel at CES at the Digital Health Summit, John Lynn. John, how are you?
Doing good. Glad to be here. I'm still suffering from CES syndrome. I need a little sleep, but we're doing well.
No problem. And you must watch MedHeads because we love big, poofy headphones. This is good stuff. This is a good sign. And of course, the guy who is not at in Vegas but is dressing like it, he's based in Chicago. We're just going to call him Vegas Neil Versel. Vegas, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? Happy birthday, Elvis, and happy birthday, David Bowie, if I'm correct, right?
And happy birthday, Stephen Hawking, today as well.
Stephen Hawking. That is the grand triumvirate. So anyway, we want to talk about CES 2016, right? It gets bigger and bigger, and the amount of health things that are announced. IBM rolled out announcements that I would have thought of as akin to hymns, right? Massive wearables conversations. A whole host of people just wanting to classify themselves as health and biotech. Stephanie and John, we want to go to you guys. Let's separate the wheat from the chaff. John, I want to hear from both of you. What did you really like, and what do you think really got traction at this year's CES when it comes to healthcare?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things that were happening. I think the challenge is that there were a lot more copycats this year than in past years. So, whereas before you might see 3 or 4, fitness trackers, now there's probably 15 or 20. And you're like, geez, how can all of these survive? But, but alongside of that, I mean, some of them are coming from, places like China. And, I went to one that was a fitness tracker, and all of their signage was in Chinese. And I was just like, okay, well, you're at CES and you're doing it. And obviously there's a lot of international people who attend CES. But I saw their signage in Chinese. I said, tell me about this. And I said, oh, okay, that's really interesting. You have a fitness tracker. They had the traditional, the fitness tracker, the blood pressure cuff, the scale, and I think they had an ECG. And you look at that, okay, you've got the 4 that are really popular across all of CES. And I was like, how is this Chinese company going to make it in the market with essentially what I would consider kind of Me Too products? And then they showed me the real magic. They showed me their app was built totally on WeChat.
Huh.
Which, I don't know if you know WeChat in the Chinese culture, but everyone in China is on WeChat. And so when they're built on WeChat, they already have every authenticated user in China that's ready to use their application. But then you also don't understand, WeChat is kind of like well, Kik is the closest competitor here in the U.S. to what they've done. In fact, WeChat's invested in Kik. There's a few other WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. Those are the competitors, but none of them have done what WeChat's done, which is they built a whole ecosystem of apps on top of it. So in China, if you're ordering a table like we do on what's the table when
Open table, you're thinking?
Yeah, open table. Thank you. If you're ordering that in China, you do it on WeChat. If you're ordering an Uber, you do that on WeChat, right? So WeChat is a platform for all these other apps, and it turns out it works really beautifully in digital health because, for example, what did Fitbit do? They said, oh, let's compare you against other people and see how you're doing with your steps. Well, what does it take to do that in the U.S.? You have to email all your friends, and hopefully they're signed up. If they're not, you got to convince them to sign up. Well, in China, boom, just happens automatically. It already knows all of your friends on WeChat, and it syncs you up with them. You already have that competitive opportunity, right, to help you do it. So I think that was one of the impressive things. Second one that I think was really interesting is there's a bunch of sleep monitors. I mean, I think there's a whole suite of them that are finally coming into their own in a new way. There was one sleep monitor I met that actually came from the medical device space. They have an FDA-cleared medical device, for beds in hospitals to track them, and now they're making a consumer product. And I asked them, I said, well, why'd you go that direction? Why not just make it FDA cleared? You already know how to do that. Why don't you just go that way with your consumer product? And when I asked them that, they said, well, the problem is we could do the FDA clearance. That's easy. That's no problem. That's our bread and butter. They said, but the problem is if you do that, once you start that, it's not a one-time thing, but then you got to do it forever. And so they said by doing it as a consumer-focused product, we can do iterations without worrying about the FDA clearance. I think that was that. I should mention the company names. So I think the sleep monitor I saw was called the Chinese one was called LifeSense. So it's lifesense.com. And now I'm just, there's so many senses out there. The brands are starting to overlap. Did you have that problem, Stephanie? It's like.
Yeah, Stephanie, that's fascinating. The sleep monitors. Stephanie, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, this was only my second CES, so I don't have as much experience as John does, but one thing that really struck me was just the amount of baby tech tracking devices that were designed to track like babies' vital signs, or children's things like posture and things like that. There was even like a dedicated area. I think there was a room dedicated to baby monitors, baby technology. And it's translated into the larger companies as well. Like Withings was showing a thermometer that had this kind of. It's so far apart from what I remember a thermometer to be when I was a kid. I remember this very kind of clinical sort of thermometer that you'd be terrified if it fell, because if you dropped it, because there would be mercury or something. But these things, it's like their thermometer has like this cartoonish kind of this, looks like almost like a cucumber, and it's designed to look playful, and but it's also either I think it's FDA cleared or on its way to being FDA cleared device to track a children's temperature without having to insert something into their mouth, because children object to things like that where it can. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And then one of the interesting points that someone made to me was that the reason why that's so interesting, that there are all these baby tech companies out that were there, was that raises a lot of interesting possibilities for pediatric clinical research. And that's something I suppose I hadn't considered before. But so that's one interesting area. I thought what Validic was doing with their Vital Snap, this idea that they've built this infrastructure for medical device companies to de-silo their data and transmit it to health IT systems. But now they've added non-connected medical devices to that. So that adds a huge customer base that they hadn't tapped into before. It also helps patients that maybe can't afford these kind of those connected devices, and it creates a broader patient population, and it allows more people to benefit from the value of connected devices.
That acquisition price to IBM is just going up and up and up for Validic. Let me, you mentioned, and I want to go back to John too. I love some of you talked about some of these real niche emerging technologies. Stephanie, you talked about some of the bigger players like Withings and Validic. John, was there a big player who you think made the most impressive splash, whether it was Medtronic or IBM or Fitbit or whomever at CES?
So I think there's two ways to make a splash at CES. One is the show floor, and I think if I were giving my show floor award of who made the best impression, the biggest impression, I'd give two. I'd give one to the party booth to Under Armour, which felt like going into a disco club, I don't know how you get business done, and I feel bad for the people around them because it was literally that loud, right? Like you go and you're like, oh, wait, am I at a disco or am I at a conference? And the second one is actually iFit, which they kind of came out of nowhere last year. They had this nice big booth, and they doubled down this year. They had these 4 treadmills up on a stage, maybe 8 feet high, and they had girls and guys dancing and walking on them. And then they had a bed, yes, a bed, on stage up 6-8 feet high with silks draped from the roof. And they'd have the Cirque du Soleil performers that would be on the silks do this dance thing on there. A few of us were there, and we're like, who is iFit? Like, I saw them last year, and they made a pretty good, showing last year. They had some treadmills and different stuff up there. But we didn't know who they were. I figured out who they were. It's actually Nordic Track.
Oh.
Remember the old Nordic Track? All that money now, which I heard someone say, $50 million a year that they're investing into iFit, which is a ton of money, right? That they're going with this iFit application. And they're actually integrating with that sleep monitor that I told you. So that the bed, yes, there is a reason for the bed and the silks, right? I mean, obviously the silks is to attract attention. But the bed monitor was from Early Sense that they're using, and they have an integration with iFit. And then they had another area that had this whole cube where they could meet with people, and I think they had products in there. They could show off products. And they had another treadmill with someone else on it, and it was actually tracking their foot, which was really unique. I think there was a whole suite of those things, tracking their foot and seeing how are you walking. Oh, you're too far back on your heels. You need to move a little forward. That's going to cause you trouble, which I think that was a really interesting thing I hadn't seen before. But then they had a whole suite of those for sports, right? How high are you jumping? They have a whole basketball court. Actually, I don't know who the vendor is. I think it was Spalding or something, where they had 2 guys shooting, and the ball would track. Where was it on the court? Where was it with the player? I'm not sure how the health applications. So that's the interesting thing about CES. You get this mix of like consumer health along with fitness and athletic stuff there as well.
Well, actually,
go ahead, Stephanie.
Can I just add on to that? I mean, there was one company, just to sort of follow on what John was saying. There is one company called Sensoria, and they've developed these connected a technology that involves textiles embedded with sensors and putting them in a sock to track steps and cadence and distance. And they launched this last year. But the interesting thing was this year they developed a companion app called Sensoria Walk to track the activity level and how people are walking and how far they're walking when they're recovering from a stroke or a procedure, presumably like an orthopedic procedure. And that's really interesting that they're now sort of like they've taken this device that resonates with people, and they've found a niche area to apply it to in healthcare.
Interesting. Well, listen, Neil, you're not there in Vegas, but you have, I want you to put all this in context for us. I mean, from what you hear and what you hear from the larger health IT community, I mean, what do you think people will be driving toward, or what do you think out of all these things is the most impressive that you could see getting traction with all the other priorities going on in health IT?
Sure. Well, I want to back up just for a second to what John had said about the Me Too apps. To me, that's a sign of a market maturing. There will always be Me Too apps who are going to be late to the party, maybe try to undercut in price or come up with some new spin on things. A lot of these companies are going to fail, of course, but some might find traction in a different segment of the market, maybe upmarket or downmarket. If it's somebody can come up with a $20 fitness tracker, for example, versus the what is it, $65, $70, $80, $75 that the base Fitbit costs. I think there's going to be room for that, but it also shows that it is a maturing market. Now, whether this translates to healthcare is another story, and that's the question that I ask myself, because that's the kind of thing that I usually cover. Will this data be useful in a healthcare environment, or is it just going to be an expensive toy?
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point.
And
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I think that is the challenge, right? If you look at the Fitbit data, I mean, I wrote an article just a couple of days ago out of CES saying, well, the problem with Fitbit data is it's not clinically relevant yet. And so until these devices become clinically relevant data, which is either in a consumable format, which is one problem, but the second one is Fitbit data is inconsistent. Did you see that increase in heart rate because you started walking, or was it because you actually have a heart issue, right? That's a big issue that's really hard to track, and they aren't doing anything about it because, quite honestly, they don't need to. Their business is so successful just being a consumer play. And so, you ask the question, should doctors get this Fitbit data? Should doctors get this ECG data? Should doctors get this blood pressure data? Well, right now, in many cases, the answer is no, because it's not clinically relevant. But as it matures, which I think we're starting to see, especially with the ECG data, we're starting to see it become more clinically relevant. And I actually talked to a number of them that said, hey, we understand we can't just dump our ECG data on these doctors, because if we do, they'll be like, what do we do with it? Yeah. We have to give it to them in an actionable way. In fact, during my session, I said the phrase, and a few people tweeted it out. I said, it's not big data. Big data doesn't matter. What matters is actionable insights. And every doctor wants that.
And I think Fitbit, a couple of months ago did introduce what they call a HIPAA-compliant platform, which is a bit of a misnomer because a platform can't be HIPAA-compliant. It's the user that has to be HIPAA compliant, but they say it's up to HIPAA standards. They then say that we're going to be able to sell this to health systems. Will health systems use it? I don't know. Health plans are using it for wellness programs, but that's not the same as making it clinically relevant for doctors. It's becoming clinically relevant for, say, nurse case managers, which is a big step.
Yeah, and I think that point you're talking about is probably one of the big issues. It's funny, they roll out the fancy stuff at CES, you'll get down to this stuff at HIMSS, right? So it probably works really synergistically.
By the way, don't put it past the HIMSS vendors to go way over the top with their displays either, because it doesn't matter where it is, they're going to go over the top with their displays. Maybe not like some of the big consumer electronic companies in the other hall at CES, where was it Samsung and Toshiba seem to be outdoing each other, who can come up with a bigger TV display, or LG I think is one that's usually there. It's not going to be like that at HIMSS, but it is going to be a little bit over the top, and also the reason why I try not to. I hate going to the show floor for meetings.
Well, I would just say this. But I think that the point that everybody's made here is a really good one. Is that we have this new anecdotal data, and that's really what it is, right? And how do we ingest it? And I was hearing at the end of Q4 of last year, there's going to be a lot of people making cases for this is how you use anecdotal data in healthcare. This is how you use inconsistent data in healthcare, and it has a value even though it is not meeting the clinical standards that most of our data has. And there's some truth in that. But it's interesting. I think that wearables are also going to begin to prove their worth. Probably lost in this whole conversation was there was a Reuters report that there was a wearable that showed it can gather data as effectively, if not more effectively, than previous methods. And I'm forgetting that it's a very niche issue. But I think wearables have to rack up those kinds of wins and prove these things to make everything happen.
Yeah, I can tell you though. I can tell you, by the way, from a distance, not being there, I've been seeing a lot of people of all the products that are being mocked from CES in healthcare and fitness and wearables and that sort of thing. It's the ones targeted to women that seem to be getting mocked the most. And maybe
that's because people are jerks, right? I mean, people just like to mock women.
Jerks. I know that the Bluetooth pregnancy test was one that was getting mocked left and right.
I think there's an award. Well, actually, Neil's doing a great segue. I want to hear real quickly, Stephanie and John, what were the big stink? Like, what was the overhyped thing? What's the thing that you saw that you just kind of shaking your head? The more prominent people experimenting with it, the better. John, when we start with you. Or okay, John just put his finger on his lip. I mean,
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Stephanie, what did not impress you at CES?
I was not impressed by medical wearables solutions solution to what they describe as Game Boy disease. This idea that that a parent is not going to know if their child is spending too much time playing on their smartphone or tablet or a computer unless they have this quantifiable data. I mean, is it that difficult as a parent just to know what your kids are doing and just to tell them to take away their toys or something?
Yes, it is that hard.
How is big data apparent?
Yeah, son, I want to show you your trends here. Why you shouldn't be on your Game Boy anymore.
I'm sure.
Well, I would say,
really
John,
impressed.
as parents, I think John and I can say that yes, data management and kids, I mean, a child lives an integrated life, right? His homework is on Google, Google Homework and Google platforms, and you've got all kinds of. I'd be interested in looking that up because I'm desperate to be a better parent. John, what do you think? What do you think, Fluff?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, what amazed me was the number of solutions that didn't have anything to do with technology, really. There were all these, hair growing ones. I guess there is some technology there, so they're putting laser. There was
Were you in the beauty section, John?
Huh?
Are you talking about the beauty section?
No, it was in the health section, which they were
Really?
right next to each other, so
Okay.
maybe there's some overlap.
Health can be beauty, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was like these hair growing ones. There were the massage ones that flex your muscles off in the corner. In fact, it was in the abyss. In fact, I told them you shouldn't be here. There's some empty booths in the digital health section. Just walk over there and do it over there. But they had a device that you'd put on your head, and it would send electronic stimulation to your brain. And supposedly, although they can't make certain claims, right? Of course, they're still working through the trials on this. But it will help you concentrate. And as you're learning, you have improved learning according to their studies, right? So there's all these. I mean, the things that you're like. This just feels like a bad infomercial, right? And like you're trying to scam me, and you're walking that line of what they're allowed to claim and you're not allowed to claim. And there was a ton of that this year. And I'm like, I guess somewhat that's electronic, so I guess it's a consumer electronic device. But there was tons of those. I mean, there must have been the ones that just flex your muscle, which I'm sure you've seen them at other conferences. There must have been 20 of those scattered throughout the conference. And then there were a bunch of actually nutrition ones as well, like water bottles, which I don't know how that's electronic either, but they were water bottles that had nutrients of some sort, whether you put the fruit in and it somehow extracted it from the fruit, or whether some other way. There was a whole slew of those types of things. And obviously, I mean, to me, it just feels like a bad infomercial that is going to go nowhere. But interestingly enough, one of them, the one with the brain sensor one, I said something about, you guys feel like the one that flexes your muscle. He said, yeah, we don't sell as much though.
Well, I think that what's interesting is that the best thing is the IBM Go to Die headline. IBM Watson went to die at CES. I don't know if anybody saw that, but I think you're going to see.
It was in today's morning read, I believe.
Yeah, if you look at today's morning read of MedCity News, you can see, and it was on 24/7 Wall Street. I think it's going to be interesting to see how IBM fares. They keep talking big and big and big, and they make big deals, and they make some partnerships. But this 24/7 Wall Street piece was basically, IBM Watson went to die at CES. So it'll be interesting to see how the market takes them as well.
I personally don't buy that because they're working so closely with so many large health systems. I'm not buying that IBM Watson is dying.
And I thought that their collaboration with Medtronic, as far as their early warning system for hypoglycemic event hours ahead of time, if they can get that to work consistently, I mean that's really, really useful for people in that situation, avoiding the need to go to a hospital or develop complications from their condition. I mean, it's that sort of combination of using sort of the data that Medtronic has gathered through its CareLink user base, and actually using Watson to identify patterns that lead up to that kind of event. That can be a huge lifesaver for people with that condition, with type 2 diabetes, or diabetes in general.
I actually heard one vendor, hit that point. They said the problem is IBM Watson wants everything. They want all the data from everyone, and they're doing nothing. They said we're the opposite. We want very little slices of data, and we want meaningful results.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Well, look for IBM to make some major deals this year.
Here's a segue for you, by the way. I know we're coming close to the end of the half hour.
Yeah.
Segue for you. Company that wants all the data is NetHealth.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there's a lot of ways to get that, and so let me shift gears here. We are wrapping this up, and I really appreciated your breakdown of CES this year. I think that it does become a continually larger, and particularly as we do more consumer business models, and it's a more direct-to-consumer business model. Healthcare and CES is just going to be bigger and bigger. We're going to be like second to cars, right? But it's it's a great way to kick off the year, and I appreciate giving us some insights on what was happening there on the ground. Stephanie wrote all week this week. John, I know you're going to be writing about it too on healthsteam.com. So it's a great way. The one thing we do at the end of every MedHeads is we talk about the other big stories that we heard in the business of healthcare, and so I want to go around the horn, everybody, to talk about some stories that they read this week that they thought were a big deal. Neil, let me start with you.
Okay. Well, I hashtag humble brag. I broke the story on Tuesday that HealthSpot, telemedicine company that had seemed like a high flyer a year ago, it has shut down its operations. We haven't heard from the company. We've heard from everybody else, including their partners and their investors, pretty much confirming that they were shut down, but didn't give any reasons why. I've heard lots of speculation. Possibly the kiosk model is outdated, although American Well does have kiosks, and my discussion with Roy Schoenberg indicated that they're still pretty bullish on the kiosk model for part of their business. They said it's the fastest growing part of their business too. Possibly they didn't have they had to deal with the overhead of trying to match patients to doctors at set times to be at the kiosk. It wasn't exactly doctor on demand, physician services on demand. May also be that I've heard some people speculate that they didn't listen to what patients wanted. So I don't know, but it's for a business that's booming as much as telemedicine. It's it's quite a shock to see a company go under so quickly, and maybe there are other things going on behind the scenes.
Someone made an interesting observation to me that if someone can make the time to go to a kiosk, they can make the time to go see a doctor.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's not true. I can make time to go to a doctor to get a flu shot, or I could go into Walgreens and go and get the flu shot, and that's where those things were, right? I do think it's. I am kind of intrigued by the story. It was a kiosk in an app world, right? And so that's maybe the issue that you run into as well. So is it a kiosk in an app world? Is it where you can do these things by just popping up on your smartphone? With so many apps, that could be a real question.
Now some of them were set up in outlying Cleveland Clinic locations, where maybe they could have a consultation with a specialist in downtown Cleveland if they were at one of the outlying locations, and there is a pretty good application for that. But do you need a kiosk? You could just set up a computer in a private room, right?
That's true.
So breaking news. The CEO of HealthSpot actually emailed me and said he wants to do a call later today. Literally, he's on. So, hey, Steve, welcome.
Steve, we wrote about you first. We wrote about you when you were a baby. Steve, we wrote about you when you were getting your angel money. What's up with the Ohio peeps? You're not giving. We reached out. Oh, this is broken-hearted, man. Health Scene?
Sorry.
Health Scene. No offense, John. Health Scene?
Healthcare.
You guys got the break. I'll take the long term. That's how I work. You know, you can take the break. I'll take the long term. But he replied. He said, "We're on demand with 5-minute wait times." That was his response to your comments.
Okay.
Anyway, the good thing is he's alive and well. And I think the key for me that's interesting with this is I want to hear from Steve. What is the message, right? Like, what really did happen? What were the problems? You know, so.
I think we're all universally dying to know. I mean, it does. You know, the nightmare scenario. The thing that you hear at ATA every year is that regulation is getting better. Oh, it's not really going to be as big of an issue this year. When I always see it as like the big elephant that kind of steps on the heads of them. Was that an issue? We have a million questions, Steve. I mean, from the beginning, brother. Like from the beginning. Come on, Neil is here for you.
Yeah, I'm here for you. And by the way, I just posted this morning.
Hold on, Neil. Let's not run over John too much here.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually saw him at the first CES, and I went there the day before CES actually started. And I couldn't walk through the exhibit hall like you usually do because it wasn't open, and I had to walk like 1.5 miles around the convention center to get to the lobby to be able to test it. So we go way back. But anyways, you know what? Tell me what, if Steve's open to it, I've been doing a lot of blabs. That's what I want with Steve. I'd love to hop on a blab and talk to him and understand, what went down, and so that other people can learn. Because telemedicine is the future. There's no doubt there. And we'll invite either one of you guys or both of you, two of you could come on and we'll talk to Steve. We'll see if he's open for it.
I'll see if. Well, let's go past HealthSpot now. I mean,
I wanted to just give a plug to the fact that I just posted a video interview this morning from Jason Gorovic of Teladoc, and he discussed the regulatory climate as well. So please go watch those video clips.
Now, can you what's amazing, John? I want you to point this out. Neil is amazing. Every time we say what your one favorite story of the week, Neil will talk about 3, and they'll all be by him. It is the best. It's amazing trick.
That's not true. Actually, he gives plenty of props to Megan and Nicole.
And the fact that I interviewed Patrick Soon-Shong this week.
Hold on, I just muted him.
Nice.
So, John, you're up next. What do you think is the best, most interesting story this week?
Yeah, so the most interesting story, which I actually only caught the headline, so I need to dive into the details, but people were talking about it like crazy at CES, and that was the lawsuit that was done against Fitbit for the claims that they made. And we actually are seeing this in a number of companies, and a lot of people are talking about this. And there's 2 sides to it. There's the people who want to be able to make as much claims as possible, and then on the other side of it is the people who are like, yes, please, let's put some sanity into what they're actually saying, because they're companies that have gone through the FDA regulations so that they can make those claims, and they're like, please, let's snap down on them. We need more news like this. That's what they're saying is, we need more news like this so that they actually start saying something that's sane and stop making these claims that they really can't claim. And so these ones that have actually done the work are really happy about this type of lawsuit, and no doubt this is just the beginning. In fact, I had one vendor of this, and they have a digital therapy. He said, I want more of this. So I think that's big news when you start going after people based on the claims that they're making. That's a whole new industry just waiting to happen. Welcome to the lawyers.
Yeah, I was told last year by Valenzo there's going to be a lot of litigation. So maybe Fitbit wasn't the first. Fitbit and there was the second one that they're going after as well.
Well, I'm going to change gears for a favorite story of the week. I'm going to go non-CES, non-tech. We wrote about Theranos, and Theranos gets a lot of hype, but I really like the story Nicole Oran did this week on Now Diagnostics. She did a Q&A with their CEO, Kevin Clark, and guess what, folks? They have a finger prick blood test that gets results in minutes for certain issues, and it's clinically proven, it's fully approved, and it was great to, in a world where we kind of have these conversations about unproven technologies, what can be done and what can't be done, kind of go back to earth around a conversation with somebody who is walk the walk with their technology. And I was just, it was a sharing of what this technology was, and I think probably if, again, story that might get lost amid all the tech conversations that happen today, a really awesome piece around a diagnostic company that works. And so I really like that story a lot this week. Stephanie, I'll let you take it out.
Sure. I mean, we talked about Medtronic and what they were doing with IBM earlier, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting was there was caregiving has been in the spotlight a lot as far as startups thinking that they can make a difference with everything from online matchmaking for caregivers and their loved ones, and to providing kind of on-demand services for that to support that. But United Healthcare actually kind of rolled out a channel that provides support on a few levels to caregivers. Not only the idea is that they will fill out a questionnaire. These are United Healthcare members. They would fill out a questionnaire to assess like what their specific the needs of their loved one is. Like, do they have Alzheimer's disease? Do they have a heart condition? Do they have? And then they'll provide targeted content from videos and articles and that sort of thing. But there's also a marketplace on there to put them in touch with technology and digital health companies that are offering services that they might not even be aware of that can help them.
That was good. Neil, I want to unmute you, but it doesn't look like I can. You unmute yourself, brother. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Vegas Neil Versel. I want to say thank you to Outlying Vegas Stephanie Baum, and I want to tell you, longtime Vegas resident John Lynn. Again, you can read him on healthcarescene.com. Thank all three of you for kicking off a great MedHeads, really breaking down what was happening at CES 2016, and this is just an indicator of how big of a year this is going to be in healthcare. So for all three of them, I'm Chris Seper, your host of MedHeads. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and we'll see you next week.
Viva Las Vegas.